All right, so we're looking at 5.1, integers and graphing. It begins on page 345. And the first thing that we're going to look at is the real-world link. It says that the bar graph shows the amount of money remaining in the closing budgets of 4 students at the end of 1 month. A value of -$2 means that someone overspent the budget and owes his or her parents $2. So that -2, whoops, sorry about that. So the -2 is talking about owing $2 to the parents, owing. So number 1 says, what number would represent owing $8? Now we don't even need to look at the graph for number 1. It just wants to know what number represents owing $8. And hopefully after we just read that and we know that -2 means that we owe $2, that owing $8 would be -8. It goes on to ask number 2, what number represents having $5 left? So you've got $5 in your pocket. What does that look like? What kind of number does that look like? Does it look like +5 or -5? That would be +5. We have $5. Now number 3 actually does refer to the graph, and it says who has the most money left? Who owes the most? So who has the most money left? That would be Berto, because it looks like he has $5. Okay, he has the most. And then who owes the most? It looks like Myron is going to owe his parents a lot of money. So Myron, looks like they owe -$8. Okay, so Berto has the most where he has $5 and Myron has -$8. I mean that he owes his parents. So Berto has extra money and Myron has negative money. Alright, so example number 1 says write an integer for each situation. Explain the meaning of 0 in each situation. So a 10-yard loss. So it says because it represents a loss, that keyword loss, the integer is going to be -10. In football, the integer 0 represents no yards lost or no yards gained. So a 10-yard loss means that 0 represents the line at which the ball is, right? And if it's a 10-yard loss, then the ball gets bumped back 10 yards. If it's a 10-yard gain, that would be going forward, and that would be a positive. All right. Number 2 says 4 inches of rain above normal. So because it represents above normal, the integer is a positive number 4. In this situation, the integer 0 represents the normal amount of rain. So we've got 4 inches above normal. So normal is going to be 0. And then above normal, 4 inches, is going to be positive. If it was below, well, that would be negative amount of rain. All right, number 3 says a $48 deposit into a savings account. Now here's the thing is, you'd have to know the difference between withdrawals and deposits. When you deposit money in the bank, that means that you're increasing your account. When you withdraw money from a bank, you're decreasing the amount. So a deposit means you're increasing, so the integer is a positive number 48. In this situation, 0 represents the amount that you have in savings, right? The current amount in savings. So if I'm increasing and depositing $48, I'm increasing my current amount. So 0 represents the current amount. I'm gonna pretend like that's what that says. Okay. 0. The number 0 can have different meanings based on real-world context, just like we just noticed in those 3 examples. Sometimes 0 represents an amount that does not change. 0 can also be used to represent real-world ideas like sea level. So when they talk about sea level, This is 0 sea level. Anything below is going to be below sea level. Anything above is above sea level. So we've got our negatives and our positives. Think of temperature gauges, right? If this is our temperature gauge, here's our 0. If it's really cold, like ridiculously cold that Florida doesn't know anything about, -10, that's below 0. And then if it's above 0, +10, that's positives. And that's still really cold. All right, so it says write an integer for each situation and then explain the meaning of 0 for each situation. So I'd like for you to pause the video and figure out A and B on your own. Pause now. All right, now for A, when it says gain, that word gain is talking about an increase, which is our positives. Whereas our 0 for this one is going to represent like a break even, like a starting point. You gain $2 a share. Well, you bought the share for so much money in the first place, but then you gained $2 from it. So it increased in value by $2. For B, where it says 10 degrees below 0, it's obviously going to be a negative because the word below is going to represent decrease. And so -10, and then 0 is just representing 0 degrees in temperature. Like it's literally 0 degrees. All right, so graph integers. Integers and sets of integers can be graphed on a horizontal or vertical number line. To graph a point on the number line, draw a point on the number line at its location. A set of integers is written using braces such as brace 2, -9, 0. So it says to graph -7 on the number line. So drawing a number line, then you draw a dot that located the -7. I do not want you guys spending all this time. How many numbers do I like on my number lines, people? 3. Okay, so this would be insane. So if you spent a bunch of time doing that, I would not be happy. Okay, I always say if we're going to be talking about the difference between negatives and positives, let's go ahead and put 0 in the middle, and then we can make this our negative on our left and our positive on the right. And so if we're graphing -7 on the number line, this is our graph. Done. Okay, so I don't want to go crazy. Now when they give us a set of them, we're going to need to get a little bit more into it, but again, I don't want you to go crazy, okay? So it says to graph the set of integers -4, 2, and -1 on a number line. So right away, I know that my biggest number is my +2. I always like to have my 0. And then going from here, I'm just going to go, okay, I've got my -1, -2, -3, and -4. And then if that's the case, then I need to add in my +1. Because if I'm skip counting, I'm going to skip count the whole thing by ones. All right, so now I'm going to be able to note that my -4, my -1, and then my +2. And I like to do it where I have the dots above, just because I need you to be very clear on your number line and where these dots are, okay? All right, now this is with our number line looking just a tad bit different than what we were just seeing. It's like, when I look at something like this, I'm thinking that sea level, above sea level, below sea level, and I'm also thinking about temperatures, because this is, back in the day, this is how we would see a temperature. I know you guys are used to digital now, but back in the day we used to have temperature where it went up and down like this. All right, so it says graph the set of integers 0, 2, and -3. So I know that my biggest number is going to be +2. And so I'm going to go ahead and make that my top. Then I've got to get my 0 in there, and then my -3, which means I need to be skip counting just by ones. So I need to put in my +1, -1, -2, -3, and here are my 3 dots. Okay? So this time it says graph each of the integers on a number line. Now they've provided a number line for you for the first one, and then you can do your own number line for the second one. Remember that we don't want to get too crazy, but I don't want you to spend the whole day on it, but unfortunately because they're having us graph a couple different things and they're not in like kind of, if it was like 2, 4, 6, 8, boom, you would just do 2, 4, 6, 8. But unfortunately, they're giving you some random numbers in there, so it looks like we're going to have to make some number lines that aren't as pretty as Mrs. Eccles likes. But go ahead and do C and D. Pause the video now. All right, so for C, they already gave us the number line, so I just used what they gave us. Super easy, just plotting the points, -3, 0, -2, and 4. And then for D, I made my number line, and I skipped kind of by 2s, even though I had some odd numbers in there, just because I knew I could put them in between. It wasn't really that big a deal to be able to say, oh, that's 5 and this is -9, okay? All right, so there's my points for that one. I think this is pretty straightforward. Knowing how to number your number lines is really important. Remember that 0 is always our center guy, and that's always our really good one to start with, because then, you know, skip counting this way is easy. Skip counting this way is just a mirror image. So I do my negatives, and they're just a mirror image from 0. So it's like, okay, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, just with negatives. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 with positives, okay? All right, so number 7 says Elena and her dad played golf on 4 different days. The data set, -1, +1, -3, and +2 shows Elena's scores in relation to par. Graph the scores and explain the meaning of 0 in this situation. Draw a number line, then draw a dot at the location of each golf score. So it's saying that that this -1, +1, -3, and 2 are in relation to par. I don't know what par is, but if there's -1, +1, -3, and +2, then I'm guessing that par is going to represent 0. And it does, even though I have no idea what, that was my guess, even though I don't know anything about golf. Then you're just drawing your number line, okay? I don't need all these extra numbers, obviously. My biggest number is my +1, or sorry, +2, and my smallest number is my -3. So that's probably, I'd start with my middle is my 0, and then I've got 1, 2, this direction, and then -1, -2, -3, this direction, okay? And then I just put my dots accordingly. All right, I think this is a pretty self-explanatory section. I don't think it's too crazy and out there. Really, I think if anything, this is getting us to practice our number lines, and that's always a really good thing, especially as we go into graphing negatives and fractions and that kind of thing with negatives. You need to know that it's just a mirror image. This is our 0 in the middle, everything over here. So this is our 0. On the right is our 1. On the left is our -1. 1 more over is our 2. 1 more over is our -2. And we just keep going like that each direction. Okay? Just like this was a book that you're folding shut together. Okay? Alright guys, so hope that was a quick and easy video for you. I know it was 13, 14 minutes almost, but I think you'll live through it. Thanks guys. I'll see you in school.